My guilt is a survivor. Why am I a survivor? What did I do to deserve this? As time goes by, it gets deeper. How is it that the Reaper could take him, but with me miss? But when I realized the reason that my survival had meaning, it was then I felt life's joyful bliss. But with who can I share this feeling when my heart is broken beyond healing? For as time goes on, the longer goes the list. I really can't explain it. This pain seems to never finish. Yes, I am pain that you died, but it hurts more that I didn't. And the nightmares are just the beginning. Pain isn't realistic. I'm confused what blew this fuse in this dream that is so vivid. I hate that you're gone. I hate that you're gone, but why am I alive? I hate that I become more alone as time goes by. I hate that I become more alone as time goes by, because the confusion of this reality is why I question why. Why am I alive? Why I didn't die? Why did he die? Why is it that someone as worthless as me survived? And that is survivor's guilt.
What's your name?
Abdirahman Warsame.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
How was your childhood?
Kind of different. I grew up with we were all six kids together, 5 siblings, middle child. So I grew up moving around a lot. My mom and dad divorced when I was 4 years old. And so I went around, bouncing from neighborhood to neighborhood, Dixie to Dixie, never would last more than a month. So I always kind of, making new friends. But it was nice. Grew up around my siblings, and we were all close in age, 1 year or 2 years apart. And so it was okay. As time grew on, I think that's why I'm more social, is because I just always grew up, having to learn new people and whatnot. But the funnest part of my childhood was probably we would have summer programs at the Brian Coyle Center. And I would look forward to that from the beginning of school. As soon as I'd go back in, and I started that in 2002. So I went there for a very long time. I'm closer to my mom. More so just because my dad didn't live with us growing up. He would come for Eid and for back to school shopping and whatnot. But I had more of a closer connection with my mom. I didn't start really getting closer to my dad until I think, when I got sober. Growing up, I didn't really understand her. And, I kind of would blame her for our predicament because we didn't grow up the richest of families or the wealthiest. And it would be kind of tough on me and rough, but, and I was always kind of a smart aleck, always asking questions, always talking back. And so it wasn't until later on that me and my mom started having real conversations, post substance abuse. Same with my dad as well.
Are you close to your mom now than you were?
Yeah, way more closer. We're like best friends, yeah.
How was high school?
It was different.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had this really closer connection with God in high school. I never went to madrasa growing up. Either my mom couldn't afford it, or it was just we'd have to move or whatnot. And so my first time going, at least, I would go for probably a weekend or 2 weekends, never longer than a month. But when I was 13, the summer of my 7th grade year going into my 8th grade year, was my first time going to a madrasa, and that lasted about like 4 or 3 years. And I was really close, you know, there was kind of like my, I don't know how to say, but I got really close to God, started learning a lot about the religion. It was very intriguing. I never was taught the religion. I didn't even know how to pray until I was 13 or 14. Yeah, 13 turning 14. I didn't know anything about my religion. So I had that kind of phase where I was just learning about the religion and trying to be the best Muslim I can be, you know, stuff they teach you as kids. You know, I had some good friends growing up, you know, and I remember my junior year of high school, I moved to Chicago for like 6 months to stay with my dad. And so we didn't get along as much because he was very bossy and, you know, like the stricter parent. And so I ended up moving back. And then, yeah, I mean, I did pretty okay in school. School came pretty easy to me, but I had that arrogance, you know, as a kid. You think you know everything. So like, I would always ace my tests, but I'd never do my homework and just aim for a C. You know what I mean? And life teaches you lessons, you know? But yeah.
Tell us, what was the first drug you ever tried?
Okay. So in 2016, I remember that's when my senior year was when I started kind of like wilding out. And I remember, you know, I'd go to parties, come home late, you know, all types of stuff. And I don't know, I just kind of started drifting away from my friends for reasons I don't really need to speak about. But as time went on, you know, I remember my mom kicked me out, and it was, you know, just for, you know, family reasons. But I remember while I was, you know, out, I was always around. Even before I left the house, I was always around like smoking and drugs and stuff like that. I always told myself, yo, I'm never gonna do that. I'm never gonna do that. But I remember summer, which was a really good year actually, summer 16. I mean, everybody speaks about it. It was a nice year. The year of my graduation. It was okay, but you know, I was trying to, you know, it was also a very rough time for me during that year. And I was trying my best to turn lemons into lemonade, you know, and smiling, you know, in front of everybody. But I was going through a lot, and it was a very tough time for me. And so I remember my first time smoking was actually with a friend who we weren't really that close. I had a girlfriend at the time, and her friend's boyfriend was who I smoked with. And during that time, like, we weren't really that close, you know, but we just always see each other because, you know, our girlfriends were friends. And so I remember we smoked, and I remember, you know, it was just it was a very vivid experience. I remember it. And I was just laughing the whole time, and I thought nothing of it, you know. I just did it because I was very curious, you know, and I just thought of it as a one-time thing. I remember after that, a bunch of my close friends, you know, they told me, hey, you know, how are you gonna smoke with somebody that, because they always, you know, I would always like be rough on them for smoking and stuff like that. How are you gonna smoke with somebody you're not even that close with? Let's smoke. I said, okay. And I remember during that time, I got really, really high, and a friend of mine had told me something because they were my really close friends. They knew what I was going through, you know? But as guys, you don't speak about that stuff, but they know, you know? They're just here for you whenever you need, you know, to talk about it, but you don't really talk about it. It's kind of a toxic masculinity thing. So like, I remember he told me something, one of my friends, he told me something that sticks with me to this day. And he told me, he said, hey, Abdirahman, you know, I know you're going through a lot right now, but, you know, if you're getting high to just get high and have fun, and it's just an experience for you, go ahead, by all means, do it. But if you're doing this to run away from what you're going through, stop right now. And this is like my first, couple of times smoking, so, like, it's just a very out-of-body experience. You don't know anything that's going on. You're just very oblivious, just laughing the whole time, and I remember during that moment, I just thought, and I just was quiet after that conversation. I didn't say anything to him after he said that to me. I just looked out the window, and I was just thinking, and I realized that I wasn't thinking about anything that I was going through. Like, I was just completely oblivious from it. And I smoked every day after that. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I was in July, it wasn't until 5 months later I started using pills. So I digressed very quickly and went from all types of pills, drinking, you name it. So I digressed very quickly, and it was downhill from that. It wasn't until a year later that I started getting, in and out of jail, getting in the wrong crowds, going through a lot of near-death experiences, getting shot at, a lot of different things. So my life digressed very quickly after that. And it was all because I was just running away from something,
What was your mental health like?
Very depressed, Try to hide it. I tried to, act like everything's okay, try to put on the tough guy, facade. And I was really hurt, but I felt like people really didn't care, I remember like a lot of people that I grew up around kind of started treating me differently because of the people I was around and, what I was doing and always making excuses, so I just felt like I couldn't, I just didn't feel wanted, and there would be, every time I had a near-death experience or got out of jail, I would always try to hang out with, these friends. And I remember, there was just this feeling of awkwardness and weirdness, and so I just kind of like drifted away. And so as time went on, things got worse for me. And it wasn't until 2019 that I started, realizing that, this is a problem for me, because I remember in 2018, I went through a few near-death experiences, overdosing, and I got shot at a few times. And I remember moving away. And I told myself, hey, the life I'm living is bad. It's not the drugs I'm doing. And so I moved to Duluth, and I stayed with a close friend of mine at the time, who offered for me to live with him. And I tried getting a job, and I remember a younger friend of mine had died. And so before that, I was still, using drugs. I was drinking, smoking, popping pills, everything. And I remember it was a close friend of mine had died, and it was in November 2018. And I went really downhill after that. I started, drinking every day, and I wasn't really a avid drinker. I would stop that, and then I remember I just went throughout a whole month of just, just every day, just drinking or popping pills. I wouldn't remember, I would black out most of my days. And I came to this realization, I remember one day, because another guy that I knew, we weren't that close, but we were friends, had died. And it was around December, and I was like, I can't even make dua for them in Islam. If you drink, you can't pray and stuff like that for like 40 days and stuff like that. So I just felt really a lot guilty and stuff like that. And I remember there was three cases that got sent. I was charged with 3 different crimes that were sent to the mail, and they came out of nowhere. And in this point, I was trying to build my life. I was trying to get away from all the bad habits and the bad, crowds or whatnot. And I remember I just broke, and I came back to Minneapolis, and I remember I just, it was like every month I was overdosing. And this was like a really dark point in my life. And I remember I just, thought to myself, why am I running away from everything. Let me just face it. I started going to my courts. I turned myself in. It was something that I'd rather not talk about, that was really bothering me in my life, that I had to face and overcome. And it wasn't until that point that I started looking at, moving forward, because I was living in the past. So my first pill I tried was Xanax.
Xanax is regularly prescribed to treat anxiety and panic disorders, to help relax muscles, relieve stress and tension, and help people sleep. Xanax is commonly abused as it can make people feel good by activating pleasure cells in the brain.
The whole reason why I started using in the first place was to forget. I went to smoking to forget, and after a while you build tolerance, and then, I heard about Xanax, and I remember doing it for my first time, and I was so gone. I just was like, I didn't remember half of the stuff that I did. I just remember waking up the next day and my friend's like, bro, do you know what you did today? Oh, all this type of stuff. And so as time went on, I just would keep doing it because I just keep forgetting. I didn't want to remember. And it got to the point where I wanted to stop doing Xanax because I kept losing things. I kept, getting into trouble. I would literally wake up in jail. You know what I mean? I would just go on my day, I'd just wake up in jail, and I'm like, what the heck happened? And my friend's right there in the next bed, he's like, bro, you would not believe what happened. This is what happened. This is how we got locked up, all this stuff. I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. And so I started doing Percocet after that because a friend of mine had gotten shot. And so they prescribed him Percocet.
So it's a oxycodone, and it's combined with acetaminophen. It decreases your pain, but also increases that euphoric feeling. If you're using it in ways that aren't as prescribed, or you're using it in larger doses than as prescribed, you can have side effects.
I like the feeling of Percocet because I wouldn't get as, drowsy off of Percocet, but I'd feel the same feeling from Xanax. And so I like that feeling because I could be able to control myself. I could understand the situation. And as time went on, my situation also escalated as well. There was just, certain people that I had to avoid, certain things I had to avoid and stay away from certain places because I didn't want to end up dead. You know what I mean? So I always had to be, there's people around you that you wouldn't want around you, and you could end up, getting robbed or set up or all these different type of things. So I always had to be in control of my environment. And when you're off Xanax, you're not in control of your environment. You're kind of like a zombie. You don't know what the heck is going on. You're asleep. And if you're not asleep, you don't remember anything you're doing. It's kind of like your body's on autopilot. So, I just had to be in control of my situation. And I remember I started doing Percocet. And then, as time went on, I remember I did fentanyl.
Essentially, fentanyl hijacks your body's built-in system of endorphins by binding to your opioid receptors much in the same way your endorphins do, but at a significantly stronger level. This might sound fun, but activating these receptors can also suppress your brain's ability to detect CO2 levels in the body, potentially causing a person to stop breathing. Fentanyl is much stronger than other opioids, 100 times stronger than morphine and 50 times stronger than heroin.
I remember it was in October 2017. And when I did it, I bought 2. All my friends did 1. And I overdosed. And that's where you see the video in Survivor's Guilt. That's how I overdosed. A lot of people think that that's acting and that it's like, like me acting. But I overdosed and my friend took a video because he thought it was funny. As I was telling you guys earlier, it just happened. I stayed away from pills for like a month during that time, and I went back to Xanax. Then I stayed away from Xanax and I went back to Percocet, and then I heard about this pill that's $20. Percocet's very expensive, like $45, $50, compared to, buying it for like $15, $20 at the time. And, I remember buying it, and, at first I thought it was Percocet, but it would give me a higher high. And then I realized, what it was. But by that time, I already liked it too much, and it was cheaper than Percocet, and it gave me more higher. From my eyes, it just felt like a better buy. And so I just started using that. And so I didn't start consciously and, purposely using fentanyl until 2018. And that was when, I just kept using and I kept overdosing, and things just started happening in bad ways, and yeah, just escalated from there.
How are you funding that?
God knows, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff to fund that. I would steal. I would, when I was working, I would pay for my whole paycheck with that. Yeah, that's how I was funding it. Sometimes I would ask my mom for money, tell her I'm getting a haircut, tell her, oh, I'm trying to grab some food, stuff like that. She'd give it to me until she caught on, and then she would never give me money. She just never give me liquid money. You know, if I'd buy food, she wants me to buy, if I wanted to buy food, she would buy the food for me. I remember I would sometimes go to her work and I would ask her for money. And I remember she works at the government center. She would walk to Chipotle in the US Bank building and buy me food during her work time just so that I wouldn't use the money for anything else.
So how did your family feel the first time you got overdosed?
They didn't know. There's only one time I overdosed that my mom knew, and it was because I overdosed in Cedar Riverside. I overdosed on Riverside Avenue. I remember when I was overdosing, I just felt my heart stopping, like it was just beating really fast and just slowing down. And I remember I went into this store and I asked them, can I use your phone? And I called 911. I said, I think I'm dying. And I walked out the building and I collapsed. Everybody in Cedar City. And I remember waking up in the middle of they took me to HCMC. I remember waking up and I remember a doctor just holding my eye like this, and he was like, yep, definitely heroin and fentanyl. And I'm just like, I just fall back asleep. Next time I wake up, I just see my mom right there just looking at me like this. I'm like, And I remember, and that was the first time she knew that what I was using was bad. She knew. I remember she knew that something was wrong with me. Like I wasn't just using, because my mom found out I was smoking weed in 2017. And during that point in my life, I just didn't want to be around a lot of people and a lot of places. And I was just very paranoid. Before I would go out and, not come back home, just because I didn't want my family to know. But as time went on, I just was too paranoid to be outside. I didn't want to be lacking outside. I'd rather be lacking at home. So I would come inside the house, off my ass, just really fucked up. And when I would come home, my mom would realize it. Sometimes I would run to my room. Like, I remember, walk fastly. And so after a while, she was just like, oh, you're not just doing weed anymore. I've seen you high. This is not you high. Doing something else. And I'm like, no. And it wasn't until I broke it down to her, like right before I left. I told her, during Ramadan, a friend of mine had, it was like 2 years ago, a friend of mine had died. And it's a close friend of mine. And when he, died, I watched his body and I seen his body. And that was my first time seeing somebody that I knew's dead body. And the experience is just very, vivid. You never forget it. You never forget their face, how the autopsy is, how the washing body process is. And so that stuck with me. And I really wanted to stop after that. And I remember just using, and I ended up, telling my mom one day, because I would have anxiety attacks. Like when I went into jail, I started praying for the first time. And I told when I went into jail, I told myself, I'm gonna stop doing this. And I had really bad withdrawal in jail. And I started praying for the first time. I started making dua, and praying and asking God, to remove this. And when I got out, I remember the first time, it was May 3rd when I got out on Saturday, but that was May 5th. Sunday I smoked, and I just had a horrible experience. Just really bad, very bad paranoia. And I had an anxiety attack inside my house. And And every single time I smoked after that, it was 5 times during that time period, and during that month, very bad anxiety attack. And I told myself I was gonna smoke so that I didn't use, right? But I would have bad anxiety attacks and I would just end up using because I didn't want to have that anxiety attack. Then I would, almost overdose, and I told myself, what am I doing? It's just a very big cycle. And so I remember opening up to my mom and I told her, Hoya, addicted to fentanyl, this is what I'm doing. I gotta get out of here. She booked me a ticket, same week, left.
What made you want to go back to the same drug that?
I got really addicted to the fentanyl and I just had to use it. There's a point in substance abuse and somebody's, usage that you're not using it to get high anymore. You're doing it because you need to do it. You have to do it. If you don't, you're gonna get sick, you can't sleep, you can't use the bathroom, you're gonna throw up. Your body is all sweaty and then you're shivering, you know what I mean? It's just really bad, you can't do anything. You feel really just shitty and you have to use it. And when you use it, you don't get high. You probably get high for like 10 minutes. And then after that, it's just you're regular and you go back to the feeling. There's many different times before that I tried to stop, and each time I felt miserably, horribly. I just kept trying, and it would always end up, either I would be in group chats or I'd see it on Snapchat and I'd just be like, yeah, I gotta do this right now, just one time. Or, somebody would call me and you'd be like, yo, let's hang out. And even the thing that's crazy, the times that I'd want to stop it is the times that it would become so available, the most available to me, the most easiest way to, go back to it. Even when I got sober, it was like that. You'd have friends hit you up and, say, hey, let's go turn up. I'll keep this between us, don't worry. Even when I started my activism. But that's just the way it is, I don't know. It's a battle every day, to stay sober. But sometime down that road, people realize that they're addicted. And it's usually when you're withdrawing, because that's when you think the most. You just go through this overthinking frenzy where you're just thinking about everything in your life, which is, I think, what helped me the most, honestly, because I just think about a lot of things.
What inspired you to get clean?
My best friend, Kadar Abbey. He's a co-founder of Generation Hope. That's my ace, man. We used to hang out all the time before, and he got locked up. We both got locked up together. And it was actually for something we didn't do, too. It was just crazy, divine intervention, you'd say. When he ended up, getting out, which was months later, he went into Alliance Wellness Center. And through Alliance Wellness Center, I remember I would come to him, and I was a bad friend because sometimes I would come to him, very high and all types of stuff. And I remember even sometimes I'd offer him drugs, because the mentality we had then was he's just doing a bit, he's only doing it because the government told him to do it. But sometime along that road, he changed his life and he made that decision. And he started working there, and he'd be very supportive of me. He was really supportive of me when I went to New York, when I made that decision. And I remember he was really there for me. I would talk to him a lot because during that time I just became really depressed because a lot of people who I thought were my friends, I realized they weren't really my friends. And I realized people were only hitting me up in the past because we had something in common, which was drugs, and nobody was checking up on me, stuff like that, except for him. And we were already close during that time, and I already expected that, of course, because he's my closest friend. But you still feel hurt because you have other friends, and you just realize certain aspects and stuff like that. It was there for me a lot. When a close friend of ours had died in September, it was a really hard time for me, and for both of us. I would talk to the people that are running the janaza and stuff like that, and I'd be like, hey, there's a friend of mine, and he's not really a friend because he's way older than me. The guy who watches the parties, Brother Abdullah. And I'd call him and I'd be like, hey, could you let these guys speak? And he would be like, I can't do that. This is a taboo conversation, this and that. So the parents are gonna be mad at me, this and that, And I remember That had happened 2 times. And when my friend had died, I had came to Minnesota. I went over there, and when I went to Minnesota, we tried, we tried talking to the person that ran the janazas at the time, and and it's not that he didn't want us to speak, he just understood the conversation and how touchy it was, and he knew that people weren't really saying the truth about how people were dying, and it's understandable, it's a tough time for the parents, and they don't want, because in our community when somebody dies, they look at the parents and they're like, that's a bad parent, they didn't raise their kid right. But that's not the truth. Half the time the parents don't even know their kid is using, because it's not like weed where you can smell it off somebody, or alcohol. This is a pill, right? And 9 times out of 10, they go and they get high and they come home kind of normal. But it was very taboo. What's crazy is a person that died a week later was at that janazah, During my time, and I didn't have any support. You know what I mean? Like my mom would try to be there for me. She didn't understand, she doesn't know what it is. Friends would push me away, you know what I mean? I just was around a lot of self-righteous people, you know what I mean? And who would, talk down around me and, say subliminal jokes and just not make you feel wanted. And so I didn't really have that type of help, somebody pulling me out of there. I felt like, a lot of people felt like that, and if anything, they didn't have anybody. And so, we wanted to kind of set an example and show people that, you're not alone. I think that's what inspired me as well, was, just wanting to help people, and because, you know what I mean? And if it wasn't that, then it was just people, who would try to talk to you, but, they didn't really understand what was going on with me, and I had one friend who never gave up on me, other than Kadar. His name is Warsame, and he was really there for me throughout that whole process. And it's very hard to understand, but I feel like it's just people only care about when somebody dies. It's a sad truth. When somebody dies, it's like, oh yeah, he was such a great person, and people don't want to speak about how it happened, and how they didn't have anybody, and then they die, and that's over. But everybody knows somebody that died from substance abuse in our community. If they don't know somebody personally, they know of them, or you know what I mean, or something like that. But it's such a taboo topic that is just shoved under the mat, shoved under the rug. And, it's just really sad. You know what I mean?
You mentioned you have an organization, right?
Yeah, Generation Hope.
And do you guys create safe space for anyone that's going through similar issues?
We're planning, so we had an AA meeting, but even the AA meeting didn't last as long because people stopped coming. People didn't feel comfortable talking about their problems with other people that look like them because of the culture. It only lasted a few weeks, and then we kept going for weeks, but nobody would show up, So it just shows how taboo of a topic it is, and during those meetings, we were the ones that were talking the most. People wouldn't even speak like that because they didn't want to speak about their, and it just shows the lack of comfortability within ourselves. So they talk about other people and stuff like that, and I don't know, it's just, it's very heartbreaking, I feel like, we should be there for each other, that's what community about, right? People think drugs are the problem. It's not the problem. 9 times out of 10, people are really going through problems. Everybody has shit. People are dealing with trauma and they don't speak about it, which is because of how we grew up, Our parents are survivors of war. They came here with nothing. Most of our parents, they came here married, already had kids, and they had to make a way for themselves. You know what I mean? With nothing, coming from war. My mom, when she was 15, her father died, and on her way looking for her father, she got shot. And that wakes up in the hospital and her father's dead. You know what I mean? She never spoke about that. It wasn't until I was older. And like, she acts like everything's okay, you know, but that causes PTSD. Like all these type of things is like stuff, you hear conversations like this with our parents all the time, stuff that they went through, they never speak about it. You don't think that has an effect on us? We never speak about our problems to anybody. And so like people are like, oh no, he's fine. He never told me anything. You could see it in his eyes though. You just look me in the eyes, you see I have pain. You know what I mean? You look that person in the eyes, you ask him, yo, is everything okay? People never get that. We were having this conversation earlier about, you know, a person who spoke to you and they said, you know, my mother never said she loves me, right? That's our parents' version of tough love. Everybody has different love languages, but you don't see that as a kid. You don't understand that. You know what I mean? And that same thing goes with, you know, support. People don't know that they have people in their corner. You gotta remind people that. If I were to give advice to my younger self, I would say stay patient, you know. I'll end with this. One of God's names in Islam is Al-Latif. The God is subtle in his kindness, subtle in his guidance, and in the way he provides as well. During my time of substance abuse, I was in a very dark place. And I used to think, you know, that I was cursed, you know, that there was no way out for me, and that I was gonna stick in this place, and I was gonna end up either dead or in jail. And I would have dreams about that all the time. And I just felt really hopeless. If I were to tell myself, you know, and give myself some advice, I'd tell myself that God will never forsake you. He never forsakes his servant. And that just like the night turns into the day, that light is going to come. And you just have to stay patient and you'll find your purpose. During my time of, you know, growing, I used to ask myself, why am I alive? You know, what is the point? You know, and I didn't understand. But as time went on, I started to understand. There was a reason for why I went through what I went through. If I didn't go through substance abuse, I wouldn't be here doing what I did today. If there's a will, there's a way. And you know that there's always gonna be light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always hope, no matter what. No matter how dim it seems, no matter how damned you feel, no matter how cursed you feel, that there is a way out. And you know, that the good is yet to come.